went to school at NC State. Yeah, go Wolfpack. My background is in chemical and biomolecular engineering. When I was at State, I did what's called a co-op, and that's basically, it's almost like if you were to get 3 different internships, but at the same company. So I would work for a semester, come back to school for a semester, work for a semester, come back to school a semester, and basically go on and on like that for 3 rotations. So what was cool about that is I went back to the same company, but I worked at a different department each time. So it gave me a lot of exposure across just different things you could do as a chemical engineer. So I did that, and that helped me get a lot of like industry professional experience. And then also when I was at State, I also worked in the undergraduate research labs. So that also gave me a bit more of a glimpse into like the academic side and more of a research focused position. I feel like that taught me a lot about what I like to do and what I didn't like to do, which honestly is equally important. And I think honestly the coolest thing about it is that when you get that hands-on experience, it helps things just like really click and make sense. It's very different to just like read about something in a textbook, do like the problem set, homework questions, and get that type of understanding versus actually getting to like see the chemistry in action, see like products actually being made and manufactured, and really just get to like tangibly work on something. It's very different from just understanding the theory and versus seeing like practical application. So Merck is a biopharmaceutical company. The Merck Durham site focuses a lot on producing vaccines, and we also focus on a cancer therapeutic. I currently work, like I said, as an engineering specialist in our process support labs. So basically what that means is, so our Durham site really focuses on manufacturing, but our labs also help us focus on like different ways that we can optimize our manufacturing processes. And what's really cool about that is that we get exposure to a bunch of different types of vaccines. So just like in the last year, I was able to work on multiple different vaccines, and I also am now currently working on our bladder cancer therapeutic. So it's been really cool because just being in the lab side of things, we get to have a lot of that exposure to multiple of our different products. Our day-to-day is a bit more focused on a project. So the way that that project would start is typically someone will come and ask us a question. And from there, we basically are following the steps of the scientific method. So first, you ask the question. So it's like, okay, well, what would happen if we change our temperature or change our pH of a bioreactor? For those that may not know what a bioreactor is, it's basically a vessel that we use to grow cells. So we're asking our question. We then next work on gathering our like background information. So this is basically like, okay, what is our current manufacturing process? How did we set it up this way? What are the results that we currently are seeing? And then what is it that we are think that we might see by answering this, by changing this variable? So basically we get our background information so that we have a good understanding about what we are currently working with. From there, we work on basically like putting together our study design. So from there, typically what you'll do is you'll have a control. So the control is designed by basically using the exact same method that we're using in our current manufacturing process. So that way we have something to, I'll have like a baseline to compare our results against. And then we get our new test conditions by changing up our variables. From there, we're usually typically like creating a hypothesis around what's happening here. So we're like, okay, well, we think like if we increase the temperature or change up the pH, we think that we might be able to increase our cell viability through this. So once we get our study design set up, we work on executing our study. So typically what this is like, again, we'll put together our like bioreactors, and we'll put together our controls and then set up our different bioreactors with our different test conditions. And usually we want to have multiple replicates of something so that we can just show that comparability. So once we are done executing our study, we then move into data analysis. So from here, we look at all of the results that we've gotten from our different test conditions. And then we compare them against each other. Which one performed best, which one performed worst, and why do we think that, why that happened? So once we get our data analysis, we then put that together in a summary. So this is typically looks like a PowerPoint presentation, which then gets shared with the rest of the company, and we write up a technical report. And basically that goes all the way from talking about our background, our method, what we did, why we did it that way, the materials that we used, everything that you're going to need to basically replicate this if you ever want to. And then our data analysis and our conclusion. So then with our technical summary, we then share that data with our manufacturing process, and from there we actually make those changes into our process. So we really are just following the scientific method every single day in all of our projects, and this time we just get to execute it on a larger scale. It's really cool. First off, I feel like when you're a student, you might have an idea about what it is that you like, what it is that you don't like. For example, like when I was in middle school, high school, really even from like elementary school, I knew I liked math and science. But I don't think I knew all my options that were out there. So like I said, ever since I was in like kindergarten, I was so sure that I was going to be a doctor. And it was like late high school, really like right before I was about to apply to college, that I started thinking like, oh, well, you know, maybe there's another career path that I'd like to consider. And I remember for myself, it was very hard to think about like, oh my gosh, for like 15 years, I thought I was going to go this pre-med route. So the idea of like changing my mind seemed scary and unfamiliar. And looking back, it's the best choice I could have made. So I really just want to say, it's great if you think you have an idea about what you want to do. Wonderful, pursue it. But make sure that you give yourself an opportunity to keep your options open.